Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I got some new hardware and hopefully the quality is a little bit better than what you're used to. And without further ado, here's my new story. My name is Juliana, and I'm a sophomore in college. I'm working on my degree in finance and have a part-time job at a local mom-and-pop coffee shop in the heart of Chicago, making just enough to get by. I don't have a boyfriend or a lot of friends, but that's okay because, frankly, I'm super busy all the time anyway. My commute to work is very short because the coffee shop is so close to campus and my apartment, so I usually walk to work. Let's go back to about 2 weeks ago. I was on my way to work one Saturday morning, and it was just like any other day. I had left my apartment a little early in order to grab a bite to eat at this little cafe I frequent on the weekend. They serve the best omelets, and since I'm a regular, the owner of the restaurant, Jerry, gives me a discount. After I ate, I was heading out the door when a man began walking in at the same time and nudged my shoulder a bit. Even though it was clearly his fault, I turned to him to apologize. He was fairly tall, I'd say around 6 foot to 6'2", long dark brown hair, and a scar running across his throat. As I began to apologize, he interrupted and basically yelled, "Watch where you're going." At first, I think it was instinct for him to yell like that, but when he turned and saw what I looked like, his tone changed. He began to look me up and down, and I became really uncomfortable. And before I did anything stupid, I just started to walk out again when he grabbed my arm and said, "Hopefully, we see each other again soon." I said, "Let go of me," loud enough for Jerry to hear, and he basically told this guy to get lost and told me to come around the counter by him. Well, the big creepy guy left, and Jerry asked if I wanted him to call the police or anyone. I said no. Growing up as a young woman in a big city like this, unfortunately, you get used to being harassed in some way or another, and it makes you stronger. It gives you thicker skin and more of a sense of confidence. I thanked Jerry for his help, told him I'd be back next week, and left the restaurant, headed in the direction of my workplace. As I started my walk, I noticed up ahead a couple of blocks stood the man, the Scar Man I'll call him. He hadn't noticed me, it looks like he was peering into the window of a shop, but I wasn't going to take any chances. I jaywalked across the street in order to avoid walking by him, and just as I was passing parallel to him, I saw out of the corner of my eye that he did a complete 180 in order to face me. He must have seen me in the reflection of the store window that he was gazing into. Then the Scar Man began catcalling me from across the street, slowly making his way to the edge of the sidewalk to get closer to me. I quickened my pace, kept my head forward, and ignored him the best I could. My only fear was that he would follow me long enough to see where I work. In order to avoid that, I decided to take a detour. My work was just a few more blocks up, and on the same side of the street I was on, but I decided to take a right, go up a couple blocks, take a left, then up a couple more blocks. And then I could enter my work through the back door and he would never see where I work. As soon as I turned right and was off the main street, I got into a jogging speed, then ran all the way to my work's back entrance. My plan worked like a charm. I greeted my boss, told her I was so sorry for being late, and explained the situation I had gone through that morning. She said of course it was fine, and asked if I needed anything. Again, I said no and stated I was just happy to be away from that guy. My shift went by without a hitch. Nothing eventful really happened. No sign of Scarman. All of my regular customers came in, put a smile on my face, and I forgot all about that freak and the strange morning I had, at least for a while. I decided to take the long way back to my apartment. I traveled through slightly more residential areas rather than the main streets in case that guy was still around. Plus, it was more scenic. I was about 3/4 of the way to my apartment, walking down the street of nice-looking houses in a quiet neighborhood, when I suddenly got this eerie feeling. It felt like I was being watched from behind. I turned, and there was nothing. No people outside of their houses even. Where could this feeling be coming from? I shook it off and kept going, but I increased my pace a little. The feeling of being watched persisted, but I would turn, and again, there would be nothing. This feeling lasted all the way until I got back into my apartment, and as soon as I closed the door behind me, I felt a little bit more at ease. I talked to my roommate, Caitlin, about what had happened this morning and explained the weird feeling of being watched on my way home from work. She comforted me, to the best of her ability, telling me he was just some psycho creep and not to worry about him. She also mentioned that he had probably forgotten all about me at this point and moved on to some other girl to harass. I agreed and thanked her for her encouragement. Then Caitlin suggested we play some video games to get my mind off things, and that maybe we could even stay up late and do typical sleepover stuff. Although I wasn't really feeling it, I know she just wanted me to feel at ease and I appreciated the sentiment, so I agreed. We broke out a bottle of wine, hopped on our respective computers, and started playing some Overwatch together. I'm a Mercy main, for those curious. After about an hour and a half of playing and getting completely destroyed most of the time, we decided to hop off for a food break. We ordered pizza, devoured it as soon as it came, and started chatting about guys in our classes we were interested in, both of us egging each other on to finally grow a pair and talk to one of our crushes. It was all good fun. As the bottle of wine was becoming emptier and emptier, I could see Caitlin was getting more and more tired. She tried so hard to stay up late with me to make me feel better, but I could tell she wasn't going to last much longer. I told her she should get some sleep, and she hesitantly conceded, going to her room after a slurred goodnight. Then it was just me, and I wasn't quite tired yet, so I decided I would open up another bottle of wine and watch some Netflix on the living room TV until I was tired enough to go to sleep. I made my way to the kitchen, grabbed the wine from the pantry, and popped it open. And as it popped open, I accidentally spilled a bit of wine on my hands and the counter. I then went to the sink to wash up, when I noticed something outside of the window that was just above the sink. I saw movement in the little grassy area outside of our apartment unit. Now, it is an apartment complex in a college side of town, so movement late at night isn't unheard of, but it still caught my eye. I suppose I was a little shaken about what had happened earlier and probably felt a little jumpy. Again, I shrugged off the feeling, grabbed my glass of wine, and went back to the living room, turning on the TV and plopping down on the couch. While browsing Netflix trying to decide what to watch, the power went out. Great, I thought. This is exactly what I needed today. I lit some candles we had in the living room and drank my wine while waiting for the power to come back on. After thumbing through my different social medias for a while, I got up to get a wine refill in the kitchen when I noticed that the apartment across the street still had power, as some of their lights were on. It took me a second to make the connection, but then I started panicking. Why would only our power be out? Do power grids even work like that? Or does one unit's power have to be deliberately turned off? And at that moment, I thought maybe I was just being a bit too paranoid. I was even resisting the urge to wake Caitlin up so someone was with me. And that's when I heard the knocking. Not at the door, but on the window by the sink. I froze. My heart sank into my stomach when I heard it. I was almost too frightened to even look in the direction of the window. Too afraid of what I might see. The knocking started to become less and less frequent, so I decided to quickly glance over, and I saw a dark figure move past the window and around the corner of our unit. I knew the direction that figure was going, and it wasn't toward the exit. It was the direction of our front door. I went into Caitlin's room and shook her, trying to wake her up. Caitlin, someone is messing with us outside. I'm freaking out. I don't know if it was the wine or the fact that she was dead asleep, but all I got in response was some mumbling and she turned over. I left her room and kept her door open in case I needed to get to her. I went into my room and just waited. Waited to see if I was just paranoid and maybe these things would just blow over. But that's when the banging started on the front door. Loud bangs. I jumped at the first one, and after a couple, even Caitlin woke up and stumbled into my room asking what was going on. I very quickly explained to her what had happened since she went to sleep, and she said we should call the police as the banging continued. And we did call the police, and the operator told us to stay on the line while they sent officers to our apartment complex. The banging on the door grew more and more violent, and then someone saying through the door, "Come on, let me in. Remember, I want to see you again." I recognized the voice. It was Scarman. The banging then stopped, and we heard him yell a profanity as he seemed to walk away. Then, all of a sudden, there was a loud crash in the kitchen, the sound of glass shattering everywhere. Caitlin and I screamed as we saw our window above the sink was no longer there, and the Scarman was just on the other side with a bloody arm. He had elbowed his way through the window and was starting to crawl through it. We froze in total fear when we saw him, smiling at me with this demented grin that stretched across his face just as wide as that scar on his throat. We screamed at the top of our lungs and ran for the front door, hastily trying to unlock it. But then, we heard the sounds of sirens approaching and tires squealing in our usually quiet apartment complex. Scarman noticed as well, and he jumped back out the window and made a run for it. 2 policemen came and saw the window, then came around to the front door and asked us about everything. In a panic, we told the officers that he got away and showed them which direction the man took off in. They radioed the officers in the second car that information, and those officers took off in that direction as well, looking for Scarman. Then we gave these 2 officers all the information we had, including what had happened to me previously that day. After these events, Caitlin stayed at her parents' house and I at mine. They still haven't caught Scarman, but the police say they are hoping to use DNA they collected from the window to find him. My parents bought me a used car so I don't have to walk to work or school anymore, and I bought pepper spray and a pocket knife to keep with me, just in case. I really hope I never have to use them, but until Scarman is caught, I don't think I'll ever be able to truly be at peace.